So welcome to our next session, which is about talent, expertise and people skills. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. So I'm going to start with Brett. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business, please.
Hi, I'm Brett Gerrett. I'm General Manager of Isleworth Travel Management. We're a startup division of the Sunvil family. We specialise in SME travel management aimed at the maximum £1 million travel mark.
Great, thank you. And Joel, if you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business as well.
Thanks, Danny. I'm Joel Henry, so I'm the Manager of Marketing and Business Development for the Antigua and Barbuda Tourism Authority based in London. I have been in this role for 12 years and we're basically responsible for all the promotion and trade relations for the country of Antigua and Barbuda. The UK is our second biggest market and it's a very, very dependent job to provide tourism arrivals for the destination.
Great. And Joel, I understand that your career, you started out in Antigua and then moved across to the UK. So if you'd like to just tell us a bit more about your career journey to date.
Well, it started with a passion for planes. My job initially was to become a pilot, but obviously I couldn't afford the pilot skill. So I found myself in a job that requires me to be around planes. So I started off working as check-in for a local regional airline in Antigua. And being from a small island, it provides you with great opportunities to grow. So I moved around various departments in operations and sales. So it was really good to have a sort of like a senior position at such a young age where you're responsible for dispatching flights and organizing flights. That's such a big responsibility. And then the opportunity came up board to work for the tourist board. What I didn't know, it was a job in London. And then obviously I came here for 2 years and 12 years, I'm still here. Initially I was just a tourism officer, so I was administrative support to directors. And over the years, I'm now the manager of business development. So I look after hundreds of tour operators and thousands of travel agents across the UK.
Thank you. And Brett, your background, I understand you've worked for a number of different businesses and you kind of developed your career, done a bit of work overseas. So you just want to talk us through that career journey?
Well, funny enough, I started off as a chef. I done an internship in catering at a well-known restaurant in London, and one day took a leap into, I think it was the Crystal offices in Surbiton, and became a chalet chef for a season. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm loving this, no rent to pay, and this whole chalet life. So I was working in chalet for a few years, then moved into as an overseas rep, going to the airport, looking after guests. After a few years, I went from that into a resort management position. A few years after that, I then came back and made a weird diversion into corporate travel. So I've worked for HRG, I've worked for American Express, I've worked for Flight Centre, and now I've started Isleworth Travel Management. It's been a long journey to get here, but it's definitely rewarding. Looking back and seeing what I've achieved, definitely something to be proud of, I'd say.
Yeah, and corporate travel, I think people are very familiar with leisure and holidays, but just tell us a little bit more about kind of day to day, what is typical within a role within corporate travel?
Yeah, definitely. Leisure and leisure and retail. There's a lot of spotlight in the trade press. Corporate travel it's like a stepbrother really that's sitting in the corner and is working hard. I think the volume of corporate travel that goes through this country, kind of, if without it, the leisure industry would probably struggle. Day to day, we're dealing with SME clients who are around spend maximum £1 million, and we nurture them. We nurture these clients, so they call us. We have no online technology, and we deal with these clients 24/7, 365 days a year, managing their corporate spend, hotels, flights, whatever they need. We're there, and we manage the whole user journey. We're a team of 5, and it's going really well. I think the corporate travel market at the moment in this situation will probably be one of the key boosters getting the leisure industry back off the ground. And I think the more publicity we can get for corporate travel, the better, because there is a lot more voice around leisure.
Yeah. And Joel, from your side, the Antigua and Barbuda tourist board, you've got beautiful destinations there that you're blessed with to kind of, if you like, sell itself. But I'm sure that there's much more to it than that. How important are people skills and actually selling the destination from your perspective? Is that important or is that irrelevant?
It's hugely important. I mean, the job that we do in the UK, for example, and across any tourist office, it's about 80% human interaction. So, you know, your partnership deals that you negotiate or the relationships you have agents who support you just because you have a good relationship with them. It's essentially and vital. And the job of marketing a destination is very sort of like a passion as well. So your skills in terms of delivery, being very sort of competent in that confidence in the product that you're promoting is very strong in terms of how it communicates to your audience, whether it's consumers, the trade, media, or just meeting people in the supermarket aisle. You know, you consider yourself to be full-time ambassadors, whether you're on holiday. I've been on planes where I have a brochure of Antigua and the person next to me never heard of where I'm from. And then I'm like, oh, I have a brochure in my bag. And, you know, we have a quick chat and I'm going on holiday to New York. So you never stop working. So people skills is definitely an essential part to make it a success.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about building relationships. Is it important, do you think, to have these skills beforehand, or do you learn the skills as you go along? Is this something that people are born with?
It's a balance of both, because I think you have to be a bit natural. I think people can see through if it's a bit forced. And you also have to have that sort of, you know, mindset that to be open and to be acceptance of people's reviews or people's suggestions, but know how to handle it in a professional way to sort of bring some sort of unity or consensus where you both can agree on a solution if there's a problem. So I think it's absolutely essential. It's a 50-50 split, I would say. You have to have that natural instinct in you, and also you are learned it as you progress through the ranks.
Yeah. And Brett, that natural instinct, does that also apply to sales, would you say?
We take a very customer-centric approach into our sales, and travel used to be about sales, big commissions. Now there's more people fighting for bookings, and that every last booking across the line, be it corporate, leisure, or any travel. And knowing the customer and knowing what they want is probably the absolute key to closing the sale. There's absolutely nothing more than knowing what the customer wants. Whenever we sit down and we learn a new client, we learn a new thing about a client, I say, let's log it. Let's write everything down. It's good to know what these clients do in their spare time, with their houses overseas and various different things. Little nuggets about this information. These people become your friends, and all of a sudden, the sale becomes a lot less of a chore and more of a friendly chat. And all of a sudden, you've sold a holiday, or you've sold a trip, or you sold a set of corporate flights without really knowing it. And it's that smoothness of transaction. And that's where having the skills, having the ability to have an open conversation with someone and just, learn about them makes this job a whole lot easier sometimes.
Yeah. So if you've got someone interested to getting into corporate travel and they've got a background maybe within leisure travel or perhaps in sales, but from outside the industry, is there some advice you can give them to help them to get into corporate travel?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's normally a very easy route in. If you want to be in frontline sales, you can either go into a business development role. I know if you've got experience in sales and you can take a BDM role, easy. There's always big companies looking for new BDMs. If you want to go into sales and booking flights, and you're used to that environment. It helps benefit if you know a GDS, and we do a lot of GDS-based work. We use Amadeus, for instance, and also knowing new stuff. There's a lot of people who are very upskilled on traditional ways of doing things, but knowing new ways of doing stuff. Obviously, NDC is a new thing that's coming out into the market in respect to flights. Corporate travel is very focused on flights. If you know something about NDC, you'll probably know a lot more than most of the people who are currently doing NDC-based travel at the moment. So that's that, and I think it's taking the leap of faith. Sometimes there aren't fun times. There are situations that we find ourselves in. I tweeted yesterday, actually, I was getting a new MacBook, and as my MacBook's done 100,000 air miles. It's been through one government coup and 3 airline failures, and that's the market as it is. There are really good times, and there are excellent earning opportunities, and the satisfaction as well I get personally from delivering, people who are in meetings in New York and say, right, I need to get home, I need to pick my daughter up to school from tomorrow afternoon, make sure I'm there, making sure one of our top clients is at the school gates to pick their kid up from school on a Friday. That's kind of my goal, really.
Yeah, and you really got to love what you do. And I know Joel mentioned a few times about passion, and I know that you do lots of training, Joel, to different travel agencies and tour operators and so on. How important is it to get product training from people like yourselves if you're trying to develop your career?
It is great, because I think you need to share the knowledge. If you keep it to yourself, it doesn't do anyone any favors. So it's an essential part of the role, and I just think you have to ensure that you're always keeping people updated. And I mean, even during the coronavirus pandemic, we see one thing is out today and irrelevant tomorrow. So you have to keep people current with the news, with the product changes, unique selling points, and just reiterating the positives and different reasons why they should be interested in your product. I think that comes across regardless of any sales job you're doing, whether you're selling spa treatments or you're selling a holiday. You need to have that sort of constant communication with your tour operators, your audience, your people, your stakeholders, who you work with, to translate that into business in the long term.
Mm-hmm. And people getting into travel often do it because they're looking to see the world. I understand that you, over time, would host fan trips and things like that. Is that important for people to experience the destination?
Yes, especially for unique destinations like Antigua and Barbuda. And I think as tourist boards work, you have to sort of evaluate where do you fit in a global scale. If you're going to be a popular destination, like going down to South Beach, Miami, everybody knows that. But countries like the Caribbean the Caribbean as a region is one of the most tourism dependent region in the world. But at the same time, people don't know the differentiation between the different islands. So for us as a tourist board, it's crucial to have that sort of on-hand experience, seeing it, believing it, and we also said that the island sells more than just the beaches and the palm trees. It's a connection you have with the people, and that sort of gets people into the mood of being in love with Antigua, and therefore they would highly recommend it, because not only they got to see the fauna and all the beautiful sides, but they also got to feel it with the food and the culture and the people.
Yeah. And in your opinion, what's most important, the talent, the expertise, or the people skills?
People skills.
And Brett, what would you say?
I think people skill.
We've solved the equation to success.
People skills. It's such a crucial part, Danny, and I think even me progressing in my career, I think that's the reason why it happened. It's all about, being in touch with people and having that connection. And in this travel industry, we've seen it through all the crises that we've been through, ash clouds and financial crisis, and now coronavirus. You've seen that people are connecting with people even more and are using those relationships now to get through these hard times for a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think I've spoken to more people face to face on Zoom than I have ever in my career. I speak to our company shareholders a lot more. I speak to people externally, whether they're suppliers and their customers. I've always been an advocate of pick up the phone instead of emailing. Now it's pick up Zoom. Even if it's a quick 5-minute Zoom to chat to people. if we're all working, we're probably sat, you know, whether we're sat in a shirt and shorts or pajamas and a shirt, I think we're already, you know, I think it's open, you know, the communication as well. It's definitely opening up and opens new doors.
And it's a really interesting point that you mentioned. Do you find yourself using those typical people skills, or do you think that you've even developed different skills while you've been using Zoom?
I think it's really weird. You have to, yeah, I remember walking into a room and it's like, oh, you have to gauge the room, and that saying of understand what the mood is like. And you can walk into a Zoom meeting, your first Zoom meeting of the day. It might be a team meeting, and people have got issues from the previous day, and you're trying to iron them out and, you know, learn from mistakes. And that team communication, all of a sudden it would be, normally you'd walk around to someone's desk and have a chat with them, or you'd go outside and, you know, have a discussion. Now you're having to manage these situations and try to solve things over Zoom as well. And bear in mind, you know, I'm not very good at multitasking, so it's not ideal. But speaking with clients as well, I think clients, I'd say, you know, touchy on technology, they're having to learn new things as well. I go, oh, would you like to do a quick Zoom and have a chat? They're like, oh, well, don't really know how to do it. We put together a help guide. Here you go. This is how you install the app and enter this number and you'll join our meeting room. And then it's more curious, and people, I think there's definitely going to be opportunity, especially in sales moving forward, and especially in retail and leisure sales, for video business and video appointments. It's definitely going to, you know, power ahead.
And Joel, I understand from your role being such an international role that using technology must be really important. You use it every day, I assume.
Yes, and but Zoom has been a new sort of fresh air in terms of how easy it is to use, but also I think it doesn't erase physical connection. I think that will come back at some point in the near future. So it's good, as Brett said, you're communicating a lot more now because everybody's so accessible. Everyone's working from home. So you don't have the reason of saying, oh, I'm on the road. So you're able to have a lot more communication and dialogue with your suppliers and your stakeholders that you work with in an industry. So it's definitely connected. And because of myself, for example, we're based in London, but we have an office in New York, and we've got one in Toronto and one in Miami, and our head office in Antigua. Even globally, we find our communication has increased so well. We're able to share ideas, we can share a screen what we're doing. And before, it was very sort of like we meet in Antigua once a year for a joint global sales meeting, and everybody go to separate ways after. So it's definitely brought us very closer, being miles and miles apart.
And having different offices in different countries, do you have any global mobility for people? Are they able to move to different offices and move around the world?
Yes, absolutely. They have a HR system in place. So your offices are set in your country for a period of time. But if an employee wants to move to another office, they can absolutely put in that request based on their needs. Because the good thing is as well is that each market is so different. So for career growth, for example, you know, you may find that in Canada, for example, it's a much smaller market. So people in Canada are like, oh, well, I want to move in London because you have a lot more operators to work with, a lot more agents. The market is more diverse. We got Europe as well that falls under our portfolio. So you find them thinking that's a step upwards for me to come to London because it provides me that extra cultural difference as well. And so people use that sort of like, you know, which country offers what and where can I fit in to grow my career for things. Luckily for me, I came to one of the biggest markets first. So me going back to one of the smaller ones would be going a step forward. So I have to see if we open an office in maybe Dubai or somewhere where we can start a new emerging market. And that would be even another step for Antigua, but there are talks always around on the books for things like that.
Yeah. Really exciting. Well, thank you very much for your insights. Really interesting.
Thank you, Danny.
Cheers, Danny. Thank you.